After dealing with Komachi, the heroine finds herself on the other side of the Sanzu River. Despite everything I just said about living beings not being able to be in Higan, here she is. She probably got a free ride from Komachi, all things considered. The souls that inhabited the flowers back in Gensokyo died without realizing it. And so, because they've slipped back into a living being, they believe they're still alive, which makes just as big a mess for both the Netherworld and Higan. Komachi especially, since her boss just happens to be around to scold her, and the heroine while she's at it. If there is any one person in all of Touhou to consider fearsome, chances are it's the one that spawned a million power level discussions on every Touhou forum. No, not Yukari, but rather Eiki Shiki, Yama of Xanadu. What is a Yama? A Yama, also known as an Enma, is pretty much a god of hell in either Hinduism or Buddhism. There are 10 of them, and they are responsible for determining the sins of the deceased, and from these, they decide whether the subject will ascend to heaven, remain in hell, be sent to the netherworld, or the rare undergoing of reincarnation. A Yama's judgment is final once made, so as you can imagine, they are as thorough as possible with their judgments. To do this, each of them has an item called a Cleansed Crystal Mirror, which they use to look into the memories of the person in question. I imagine they are trained to do this as efficiently as possible given the toll that the mirror takes on its user. The mirror can also turn whatever sins it reflects back on the sinner. Once one's sins are determined, they are written down on another Yama exclusive item known as the Rod of Remorse. The more collective sins there are, the heavier the rod becomes, and it is then used as a bludgeon until either the person repents, or the exact proportion of their sin is carried out. As you can imagine, these are very severe repercussions, so no one exactly makes it a habit of striking up a conversation with a Yama until they die. And even then, dead men tell no tales, so they really don't ever get the chance. Each Yama in the Ministry of Right and Wrong has a number of Shinigami working underneath them, and Komachi is one of Eiki's subordinates. Similarly, there are also lower-ranking judges, Kishin chiefs, and Oni working underneath them in the ministry, but only Perfect Memento mentions them, and somewhat briefly at that. The lesser judges are like local versions of the Yama, and the Kishin oversee the souls that fall to hell, with the Oni being their eternal torturers. I didn't actually know this until very recently, but apparently, the funds received to keep this organization going are the same funds paid for a safe journey across the Sanzu River, as well as fees from concession stands along the road alongside the road of reconsideration. As for Eiki herself, she is a very, very diligent person. Perhaps too diligent for everyone not in the ministry. If she ever leaves her workplace for whatever reason, she is essentially a ticking lecture time bomb waiting to tell someone off. For the best possible reason, mind you, but it usually comes off as invasive and no one ever looks forward to being told their shortcomings or potential sins. Not even those in the ministry, if Komachi is any indication. According to Eiki, the flowers that bloomed are indications of the personalities of people from the outside world that are past, and the cherry blossoms being tainted with purple is an accumulation of the sin present due to the forced blooming of flowers. The overflow of spirits that remained because Komachi didn't/couldn't bury them have a similar quality to that of the flowers, hence the outbreak. So now that we know the cause of the flowers growing where they shouldn't, the question becomes, why does this happen every 60 years? I won't answer that here, but I will point out something. 60 years prior to this incident would put the outside world right on the tail end of World War II. 60 years more would plop us right in the middle of the Meiji Restoration and the infancy of Gensokyo. Let's put 2 and 2 together in the last video.